Hi guys, I'm Ziyan once again, and this is the sixth in a series of Python basics tutorials, and today we are going to look into strings in Python. Well, to define a string is a variable length, but it should be finite, and it can consist of alphabetic characters or characters from a set. For example, it can have letters in the English alphabet, could be Arabic, could be Sinhalese likewise, and it also can have characters such as addition, deletion, this asterisk, backslash, minus, and asterisk, and signs likewise. So it's kind of a sequence of symbols. Just let's take that as what it is, a sequence of symbols, and it has to be finite. Anyways, everything is finite in a computer because of the restriction of resources. And there are some of the most basic operations when it comes to strings. They are concatenation and substrings. Okay. Now when you take numbers, you have a lot of them. You can add numbers, you can multiply numbers, you can divide numbers, you can subtract numbers, take logarithms, you can take square roots, trigonometric functions such as sine, cos, tan, and likewise. There are a lot of them. But when it comes to strings, there are only kind of few basic operations, and they are concatenation, which is basically adding a string to another, and substrings. Substrings is like a string within a string. That's why we call it a substring. So you define a start position and end position within a string of a string, and what a substring is the string that is defined by those restrictions. And as numbers, strings also have a lot of built-in functions, and some of them are split format, a find, index, replace, and this isdigit, isdecimal, isnumeric, and isalpha. So just to go through them in brief, I'll explain them later when I do some examples. I'll start from the split because that's what I'm going to do first. Splitting, as it says, separates a string splits a string by a given parameter. So let's say we have a big string and we have a whole paragraph of text, and we want to split it into sentences. What we could do is we can split it by the period sign, the symbol, and what we'll get is a list of strings as a result. And format will kind of format a string by replacing some of it with other parts as defined. You'll see it when we explain furthermore. And find will find something within a string and notify us of its starting index. And index is somewhat like find, it's almost like find, except in one occasion. Replace will replace a substring of a string, and isdigit, isdecimal, isnumeric will tell if a string consists of only numeric characters. So if the string is consisting of numeric characters and at least one of them, this will return true, else false. So isalpha likewise is for alphabetic characters. If and only if these strings consist of alphabetic characters, that's let's say from A to Z, then this will return true. And now let's just go switch over to do some examples. And first I'll start by defining a string, because that's the first thing we have to do. And I'm going to define a string by giving it a variable name and a value. So I'm going to say my string. Remember, this is just a variable name. And to define a string, you have to use either single quotes or double quotes and enter some characters in between them. So I opened double quotes, and what I'm going to say is this is sentence 1, period. This is sentence 2. Okay, so now what we have is a string uh, what we did was we opened a what you call a double quote. We entered a set of characters, and then we denoted the end of the string by adding another double quote. And now my string, which is a variable, will hold the value that we entered. So we can just print it by saying my string. And here you see this is sentence 1 and this is sentence 2. So I'm going to define another string, saying new string, and I'm going to say this is a new string. Okay, wait. I told you can use single quotes as well as double quotes, so I'll just define this with single quotes. Remember, I defined this with double quotes, the first one, and the second, which is new string, will be defined using single quotes. And now we have new string as well. And well, if you go into the basic operations of strings, you can concatenate. So how can you concatenate is by using the plus sign. So if I say concatenation, I just say con equals my string plus new string, and the result will be the joining of these two strings together. Now if we look into print con, you see, oops, my mouse is giving me trouble. This is sentence 1, this is sentence 2, that comes from my string, and just after that we see this is a new string that comes from new string. So as you see, the joining of two strings can be done using the plus sign. Now if you enter two numbers, let's say 1 plus 2, the value will be 3. But if you put two strings, let's say S1 and S2, the value will be not something else but S1 and S2 joined together. So that's how you concatenate strings, and I believe it's not difficult to understand. It's basically joining two strings. Just keep in mind like that. And thereafter we need to look into substrings. So what is a substring? A substring is a string within a string. For example, we have this is sentence 1, this is sentence 2. Anything in bit, any continuous, a substring within it, we call it a substring. Kind of obvious, right? We start from this sentence. Anything within these 2 points, which starts from a index. You remember we talked about indexes in lists. From a starting index to an ending index, which is greater than 0 and smaller than the length of the string, is a substring. So let's say my string. If you want to take a substring, you need to open square brackets and give two points or 2 indexes where it should start and where it should end. For example, I say 3 to 4, 3 to 5, and this will return from the third character to the fifth, starting from the third to the fifth. So we got 0, 1, 2, 3 from over here up to the fifth position, which is S plus space. So a substring will take 2 arguments. It's done by using square brackets and giving a range kind of thing. So what you have is 3 to 5. So it starts from index 3. Now where is the string? Okay. Index 3 is over here. You remember this is index 0, 1, 2 and 3, and goes up to index 5, which is 2 characters, and it's S plus space. That's what we got here. And if you want to take a string, starting from a position till the end of the string, what you have to do is you have to say my string, and just give the number of the starting index and put colon and nothing else. So when you say my string, those are my neighbors, sorry about that, my string, and you open square brackets, you put 3 colon and no value over here. You see, it's nothing. Over here we had 3 colon 5, over here we have only 3 and colon, but this space will, or this blank value, will say Python to take from starting from index 3 till the end of the string. So as you see, my string 3 colon, or like this, defined like this, will return a substring that starts from the 3rd index and goes till the end of the string. And the same can be done to end from a given index, starting from the 1st position. So if I say my string, open square brackets, without entering a numeric value, I say just colon, and then I give a value which is let's say 20, and what you have is a substring that starts from the 0th index and goes up to the 20th. So this is a sentence, this is sentence 1, and that's what we get. So it will be 20 characters in length, and so on. So we talked about some of the basics in strings, that is, well, concatenation and substrings. And thereafter, let's look into the split function. There are a few important functions. If you look into a string, there are a lot of functions. You can just say, let's say, con, put the period and wait for a while, and it will kind of give a lot of functions that it supports. Let's say capitalize, center, count, encode. Well, there are a lot of them. We're not going to talk about each and everything because it will take hours, and even some of these I don't know because I don't use them often. And let's go into the split function. Okay, so we're going to look into split, S-P-L-I-T, and as I said, the split is basically breaking a string by a given parameter. Let's say you can break a string by the period sign. If I say my string dot split and I give a value that is period, what I get is a list. Okay, a list that has substrings that are separated by the period. So over here I have, this is sentence 1, this is sentence 2, and well, an empty string, because if you look into here, you have from this period, there is a sentence from the starting point to the period, and over here from this space to this period we got another sentence, and from the last period, well, there is nothing, but it's a blank string when you kind of split it. So you can run some sort of a loop and check if this is blank or not, and you can make a new list if you just want to have strings that are not blank. Well, that's if you need something special out of it. And the split function basically splits by a given character or a substring. For example, I can say my string dot split by is. Okay, so I'm going to split it by is, and as you see, okay, there are a lot of things. This has an is part, so it split it by that, and we have th, and thereafter there is this blank space. There's again another is, and over here we got, from there on we got sentence and th up to th. Well, it's a bad place to split, so I'm going to say something like sentence. That's better. My string dot split sentence. Okay, I was a bit lazy, that's why I used something small, and I didn't think. Yep. So now, since we break this sentence or this string by the substring sentence, we should get 3 substrings. For example, when you split it by this key or this word or this substring, you get a substring up to it and another in between the 2 keys or the 2 sentence words, and thereafter from the last sentence to the end of it. So that's what we have over here. This is, that comes from here, and we have one, this is, that's from here, and we got a to period over here. So there are three three substrings that is in a list. So you can use the split function to split a string into multiple small strings. All what you have to give is a key to split it into. So using that substring or whatever the string you provide, it will split the string into pieces. And the format also comes quite handy when you work with strings. For example, I'll define a new variable called format string. Format string equals, if a format function, what it does is it replaces what you call replaceable fields that is in a string. A replaceable field, wait a minute, I'll just look for its right word. Replacement field. Okay, a replacement field in a string is denoted by open and square curly brackets. I'll just show it to you. My name is, I'm going to say my first name is, I'm going to open curly brackets. I'm going to give an index that is 0, and is Ziyan, and my surname is, and that's it. Okay, so this is the format string. What I'm going to say is my first name is, and this is a replacement field. When you format a string, it will replace by a value that is given to it. So let's look into how it happens. And there is also another replacement field that is denoted by open and curly brackets, one in between them. And let's see how it works. So if I say format string dot format, if I say Ziyan, oops, oopsie. Okay, yeah, my spellings. Oh God, damn shame. Sorry about that. Oh God, whatever. So I'm going to say format string dot format. Oops, this is embarrassing. Okay, format string dot format. I'm going to say Ziyan. Okay, just only one argument. Okay, this is little bit different from C#. Well, I've been used to different programming languages, and they're kind of mixing up things. What you have to do is when you format a string, you define various, what do you call replacement fields. And replacement fields are denoted by a number, put within open and close curly brackets. And if you have a number of curly brackets, number of replacement fields, over here we have two of them. You have to give the exact number of arguments into the format function. So what happened over here is I had only one argument given. I was expecting that my first name is will be replaced by only one argument, but it didn't, and it kind of caused an error message. So when you have two replacement fields, or n number of replacement fields, the number of arguments that you have to provide is n. So remember that. Some error I did over here, kind of foolish error, I guess. And if you have a number of replacement fields, or what do you call them? They are replacement fields, maybe. Kind of gets replaced by the arguments that you provide over here. So the thing is, you have to provide the exact number of arguments that is equal to the number of replacement fields in the string. Okay, so I hope the format command kind of makes sense to you. Well, this kind of comes handy when you're working with the programs that run on the command line. Well, I haven't used this except in that. Could be useful anywhere, but generally it comes very handy when making programs for the terminal. And we'll look into the format, and let's look into the find command. So now we know how to split a string. You can kind of get a substring, you can format a string, and now we're going to look for the position of a substring within a string. So what it is find. So if I say I have a string called my string, right? My string has this is sentence 1 and this is sentence 2, and if I find for a specific string or a character, what it will return is the index of the starting position of it. For example, if I say my string dot find this, it will return 0 because this starts from index 0. So my string dot find this will return 0. So the find function, what it does is it looks for a string within the string that is given. So it looks for this or any other string that you provide, and it returns the index where it occurs. So if I just give something like my string dot find, and I'm going to look for the period button, period sign, and it says 18. So I can do something like my string, I can put colon, from the start till 18, and see what happens. So I just have a substring without what we found, okay, the period. So what we have is, now we know about find, and what happens if this key, well, when you find something, what you find is called a key. So if you don't find the key, what happens? I say my string dot find nonsense. It says -1. So whenever you give something that is not in this string, what it does is it returns -1. For example, my string dot find z, it says -1 because the letter capital Z is not in this string. So find will look for a character or a substring that is within another string, and if it's there, it will give the starting index of it. You see over here we found for this, and the starting index was 0, and in the second example the period was in the starting from the 18th index, and well, it gave 18 as a result. And if you give something that is not in the string, it returns -1. And I told you the index function is kind of similar to the find function, in the sense, if I say my string dot find index this, it'll kind of return 0, the same. My string dot index the period, it'll return 18, which is the same as my string dot find period. But the difference is what happens when you give something that is not there. So let's say my string dot index, and I say z, it says value error, substring not found. So the only difference that I know between the find function and the index function is that the index throws an exception and causes an error when a given value is not found. Kind of useful, but not very much. I prefer to use the find function instead, because I don't want my program to end unexpectedly. you can kind of handle them. These exceptions we'll look into a later lesson. It's kind of an advanced topic. Well, if you're new, I think it's best for you to stick with the find function. And thereafter we have a whole set of functions like, okay, I have replace. I didn't talk about that. So the replace, as it says, will replace a string with another. So I say replace, and if I say my string dot replace, what is my string? Okay, replace 1 with 1.1. Let's say 1. And what we have is a string where the character number 1 or character 1 over here is replaced with the string 1. Okay, so what it does is it looks for the first occurrence. But when you say replace, it kinds of search the string for the first argument and replace it with the second. For example, if I say if I replace this, my string dot replace this with that. Okay, so what happens now? As you see, we got this replaced by 2 that's. Okay, so what it does is it goes through the string, it looks for the first argument, and then replaces it with the second. And there's another way you can execute this replace function by giving 3 arguments. So what you're doing is actually replace. What you're going to give is 3 arguments. Now, first we look into 2 arguments, which is the old string and the new string. The old string gets replaced by the new string. That's over here. And if you give the third argument, what it does is it takes it as a limitation, and what it does is actually limits the number of replacements to this value specified. So if I say this and that, as usual, but I say it has to be replaced only once. So the result is we get another string. Okay, now don't think that this will replace the value of my string. It doesn't change the value of my string. Rather, what it does is it generates a new string that these values are changed. Okay, so my string will not be changed by the replace and other functions or replace function. Sorry about that. So the replace will actually kind of change one with the other, and if you give 3 arguments, what it does is it restricts the replacement to the value specified. So that's about the replace function. And there are 2 kind of interesting or kind of useful functions. They are the isnumeric, isdigit, and isdecimal. Well, what these functions basically do is it says if the string specified consists of numeric characters. For example, if I say A equals 1, 2, 3, 4, B equals hi or hello, and C equals ABC 1, 2, 3. Some people use ABC 1, 2, 3 as a password. Well, I use it in my virtual machines. Kind of easy to remember, And let's look into how these functions react to these 3 variables. If I say A dot is numeric, it says it's true. If I say A dot is digit, it's going to be true. Oops. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, we have only. I thought I pressed B. Okay, so A dot isdecimal will also be true. It's because A consists of only numeric characters. That means numbers. But what happens if we enter a string? Let's say B dot is numeric. b dot isnumeric, it's false, and b dot isdigit will also return false, and b dot isdecimal will also return false. That's because all these functions we're looking if this contains numeric numbers and only numeric numbers, and this doesn't. It has characters, alphabetic characters, and it returns false. And these functions return true only if the string consists of numeric characters and at least one of them. So if I say c dot isnumeric will return false, and c dot isdigit will also return false, and c dot isdecimal will also return false. That is because although there are numeric characters, there are also alphabetic characters in it. And if you don't give any value, let's say an empty string dot isnumeric will also be false, and it will be true to isdigit and isdecimal as well. So the thing is, if you want to know that the value that is provided is a numeric value, all what you have to do is to go through this or one of these functions, and if it says true, what you have is a number, else it's not. And something similar, but what happens if you need to know if an input is consisting of letters or alphabetic characters only. So the function you use is isalpha, and if I say a.isalpha will return false, that's because this is a number. And if I say b dot isalpha will be true, because this only consists of the alphabetic characters. And if I say c dot isalpha, the return value or the result will be false, because although this string c consists of alphabetic characters, it also has numeric characters, and therefore the check will fail because of that reason. So sorry once again. So the thing is, if you want to find if an input is a number, you can use isnumeric, isdigit, isdecimal. And if you want to find if an input is a alphabetic value, you can use isalpha. So today we talked about creating a string, concatenation and substrings. We also looked into the split function, format function, find function, index, replace, and three functions which call isdigit, isnumeric, and isdecimal, and also isalpha to find if it's an alphabetic character. I thought of doing an example that uses most of these functions and the properties of strings, but we have already gone about 35 minutes into this tutorial, which is kind of very large. And what I'll do is I'll just write a program that kind of uses all these functions, or at least most of these functions, and I'll upload it with this video. Not with this video, it will be on my blog. You'll be able to find it. Information about it will be given in the description section of the video, and it will take me a few days to write the example because I'm kind of busy these days. And I hope I've been of help for you, and this is the end of the Python strings tutorial. Have a nice day.